Singapore is one of the most fun countries in the world, and in this travel guide, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know for your trip. From accommodation and transport, where to eat, what to do, what to pack, what to buy, so many other things, and some really strange laws that they have. History and geography. Singapore is actually an island and a city-state, meaning the country of Singapore only has one city, also called Singapore, and it's comprised of 60 islands. Situated in Southeast Asia, it is the smallest country in this region at about 750 square kilometers. Singapore was actually a fishing village known as Temasek. Sea Town became an important trading port due to its strategic location and became a British colony. Later, it also fell under Japanese occupation and was also part of its neighboring country, Malaysia, for a while, and so it became an independent country in 1965. Visas and entry requirements. Singapore is visa-free for 159 countries, even for South Africa, so it's quite easy to visit. You can visit the link in the video description to check if you need to apply for a visa. All you need to do is fill in an SG arrival card. You can do this on your phone when you land. There's QR codes you can scan before you enter border control. If you are from any of these countries and it's not your first time in Singapore, you can also use the automated lines. You scan your passport and you are inside the country. Make sure your passport is valid for 6 months from your date of arrival in Singapore and that you have at least 2 blank pages in your passport. Airports. You will most likely land at the world-famous Changi Airport. This airport is incredible and the most fun airport in the world. It has the Johor, the world's largest indoor waterfall, a movie theater, rock climbing, and some incredible gardens. You should definitely add spending time at this airport to your itinerary. Some areas you can access without having a plane ticket, like the Jewel, because it's also a mall. But some areas you do need a plane ticket for, as it is airside, like some gardens, movie theater, and the Vortex train. I recommend you watch my previous video, 18 best things to do at Changi Airport, which shows you all the must-do things at this airport, how to navigate it, and so much more. I've linked it here and in the description. Changi Airport is also home to Singapore Airlines, one of the world's best airlines, and it also has a budget airline, Scoot, which is really amazing for a budget airline. So you will have no problem finding a route from wherever you're coming from to Singapore. Transport. Singapore's transport is efficient, clean, and safe. I mean, this country lives in the future. You can use MRT, buses, taxis like Grab, walk, or even rent a bike. First off, to get from the airport to your accommodation, you can use the MRT. There's some buses that run specifically from the airport to the accommodations or central Singapore, or you can order a Grab or a taxi, which would cost around $20 to $40 depending how far you are from the airport. The MRT, Mass Rapid Transit, it's Singapore's train system and the easiest way to get around the city, really, it is. It runs from 5:30 a.m. till midnight. The most amazing thing is that you don't need to buy a metro card or a ticket. You can just tap your bank card or phone like Apple Pay when entering and exiting the turnstiles. You can also purchase a Singapore Tourist Pass, which gives you unlimited access to the MRT for 1, 2, or 3 days. It usually costs around 1 to 3 Singaporean dollars per trip on the MRT. The bus lines are extensive and usually reach areas that's not accessible by the MRT that's a little bit further out. We took buses between Singapore and Johor Bahru. It was about 11 Singaporean dollars one way, comfortable and aircon. Taxis. You can use Grab, which is basically the Uber of the East, and they are surprisingly affordable for Singapore. Some are also really fancy, and this was the cheapest one available in central Singapore. You can also use bike sharing programs like SG Bike, Motorbike, or Anywhere, which you can unlock with an app on your phone. Singapore is such a walking friendly city and there's so many hidden gems to discover as you walk around the city. Apart from it being really hot sometimes when walking, This is a really great way to see the city. SIM cards and internet access. Singapore is a very modern city and the internet is fast and reliable, usually 4G or 5G. Singapore also has an extensive network of free public Wi-Fi hotspots, especially in popular areas like the MRT stations, malls, parks and cafes. But getting a SIM card is still the easiest and most effective way to stay connected. You can buy them at the airport, mobile stores, or even at convenience stores like we did. But the best thing is to get an eSIM. eSIMs has really changed the travel game for us. It is so much less stressful when you don't have to worry about finding a SIM card shop and being completely disconnected until you can find one. And if you're disconnected, you can't usually find an Uber or your accommodation, and then you also lose your original SIM card. I really recommend Olafly. It's easy to get, simple to use, and cost effective. They offer unlimited data plans, and you can choose one that suits the length of your trip. So you don't have to pay for a whole 30-day plan when you're only traveling to this place for 5 days. If you are planning on an extended visit, you can even get an eSIM for 90 days, so you don't have to worry about it at all again. Or if you're planning to visit a few different countries in a region, you can get a plan that covers that entire area. Best of all, you can get 5% discount on any plan you buy or on top-ups when you use my code KINFOLKTRAVELS at checkout. We use Olafly every day, and I really love this product. Accommodation. The bad news is accommodation is really expensive in Singapore. The good news is that you can find some of the world's most luxurious hotels here, and this is the most expensive part of traveling Singapore. It is very easy to book your accommodation on booking.com or Airbnb. What area to stay in? First up, Central Singapore. This is areas like Marina Bay and Orchard Road, prime locations. This is a great area to stay if it's your first time in Singapore or if you're only here for a limited amount of days. From here, you can easily walk to top attractions and close to the public transport. If you're lucky, you will also get some stunning views, but the prices here are quite expensive. Sentosa Island. This is also a great area to stay. It is further away from the hustle and the bustle and some top attractions and more of an island beach vibe. This is where Universal Studios is and other theme parks, and a great area for families. Even though it is further from central Singapore, it doesn't mean it is less expensive. You will find some of Singapore's most luxurious hotels on Sentosa Island. The northern part, this is more local neighborhoods in Singapore. There's not a lot of accommodation options here to book, and it's not necessarily less expensive. Johor Bahru. This is a place you will find the most affordable accommodation. It is actually in another country, Malaysia, that borders Singapore, but super easy to travel between the two. And there's actually a lot of people that do this commute twice a day that live in Malaysia but work in Singapore. You can find great accommodation here for a fraction of the price, like this apartment where we stayed for $35 a night with free access to a gym and a rooftop pool. In our previous video, we stayed in a $400 a night 5-star luxury hotel, the Fairmont, in central Singapore, and this $35 more budget stay across the water in Johor Bahru. In this video, I also explained exactly how to commute between Singapore, Johor Bahru, costs, and so many more important things to know. I really recommend you watch that video before visiting Singapore. If you are only in Singapore for a night or two, I recommend staying in Singapore because commuting between Johor Bahru and Singapore does still eat up some time. Types of accommodation. Hostels and capsule hotels are the cheapest accommodation you'll find in Singapore. In hostels, you usually share the room with a few different strangers as well as a bathroom. And in capsule hotels, you have a little bit more privacy as you have your own little capsule. And capsule hotels are kind of an experience in Singapore. These will cost you around $50 a night per person. Budget hotels. We also stayed in a budget hotel for a few nights. They're usually around $75, $100 a night. You get your own private room and bathroom. Great thing is if you are sharing with a friend or a partner, this actually works out cheaper than hostels or capsule hotels. Mid-range hotels are also available at 150 to 200 Singaporean dollars a night. Luxury hotels. Now this is what Singapore really specializes in. We stayed for one night at the 5-star Fairmont Hotel. It was just across the famous Raffles Hotel, which is where the Singapore Sling cocktail was invented, and where Crazy Rich Asians was filmed. Then there's also the famous Marina Bay Sands, which starts at $840 a night. It has the world's highest infinity pool, and there is an endless list of luxury hotels for unlimited budgets. And of course, you can also rent serviced apartments on Airbnb. Cultural etiquette and ethnicity. Singapore is a melting pot of cultures. About 76% of Singapore are Chinese, 15% Malay, 7.5% Indian, and the rest a variety of other ethnicities. You can also experience these different cultures in different areas of Singapore like Chinatown, Little India and Kampong Glam. I did a whole video about these different areas, how to get there, what to do, in this one-day travel guide of the top 5 must-do things in Singapore. This video will really help you understand Singapore a lot better. I've linked it here and in the video description. When visiting Singapore, it is important to remember respect for tradition. Even though Singapore is very modern and a bustling city, it is deeply rooted in traditional values. There's a lot of temples next to skyscrapers and malls, as well as respect for elders. Elders are highly respected here. Younger people often address them as auntie or uncle, regardless if they are actually related by blood. Language. As an international, it's very easy to communicate in Singapore as the primary language is English. English is also the main language here in the government, business, or in school. And it's also the most spoken language here in everyday life in Singapore. Most signs, menus, and public announcements are also in English. Other languages are Mandarin Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. Another very important language spoken here is Singlish, which is a colloquial English with elements of Chinese, Tamil, and Malay. 2 terms to know when visiting Singapore are can, usually used at the end of a sentence, kind of meaning, is that okay? La, which adds emphasis or flavor to a statement. Food. Due to Singapore's ethnic groups, the food is a fusion between Chinese, Malay, Indian, with some Western influences. The food here are delicious. There's so many different things to try and some of the world's best restaurants. Must-try dishes here are Hainanese chicken rice. This is often considered Singapore's national dish. Poached chicken served with fragrant rice, accompanied with tangy chili sauce and ginger paste. Chili crab, a crab cooked in thick, spicy and slightly sweet tomato-based sauce. Kaya toast, a traditional breakfast which is toasted bread with butter and kaya. The sweet coconut jam. Laksa is a spicy noodle soup, and in Singapore, katong laksa and laksa lemak is most popular. There's also a bunch of different other dishes to try like satay, nasi lemak, roti prata, mee pok. Coffee and tea culture is also big in Singapore. Alcohol is widely consumed, but the alcohol here is very expensive. And of course, you have to try the Singapore Slim cocktail, which is the cocktail that was invented in Singapore. Where to eat. Hawker centers. There are markets with individual vendors that sell a wide variety of food that are ready to eat. They are known to be much more affordable than your normal restaurant in Singapore. We tried one in Newton, which is not the correct one necessary to try, and I didn't find it any less expensive than the restaurants. Main ones to try that are cost effective with a variety of food are Maxwell Food Center, known for Tian Tian chicken rice. China Complex Food Center. This is where you will find the famous Liao Fan Hong Kong soya sauce chicken. And it's actually a Michelin-starred hawker stall. Lua Pas Sat, a historical one in the financial district, famous for satay at night. Tekka Center, vibrant food court in Little India, known for Indian Muslim dishes like martabak and biryani. There's also food streets in the different areas that I mentioned earlier that you can try, like Geylang in Kampong Glam, serving duck rice, Dim Sum in Chinatown, and Indian snacks and sweets in Little India. You can also find world-famous restaurants here like Bread Street by Gordon Ramsay, where you should try the beef Wellington and the fish and chips. It's delicious. We tried it. Nobu, Cuts by Wolfgang Puck, and our favorite, Shake Shack. Food in Singapore is not inexpensive like most things in Singapore. In a later section in this video, currency and budgets, I will tell you exactly what to budget for food. If there's any food that you recommend or your favorite restaurants that one should visit, please put them down below in the comments. For every 10 new subscribers to this channel, we donate a meal to a stray animal. Thanks to the new subscribers, we were able to fund Ollie's medical bills. While back home in South Africa, we fostered him from our local shelter. He was just skin and bones when he arrived at the shelter. The most loving and kind boy who struggled to walk and sit at first is now strong, healthy, and the most lovable and caring dog ready for adoption. So please subscribe to help more stray animals. It doesn't cost you a thing. What to do in Singapore? For such a tiny place, there are so many things to do. My favorite? Gardens at the Bay. It is 101 hectares of a unique blend of nature, architecture, and technology. There's a few sections to Gardens at the Bay, but my favorites are the Super Tree Grove and the Cloud Forest. The Super Tree Grove is one of Singapore's most recognizable landmarks. They look like trees, but are actually vertical gardens. And at night, there's a Garden Rhapsody light and sound show. You have to experience this when you're in Singapore. It just never gets old. Bus come 30 to 45 minutes before the show starts. It's every night at 7:45 and 8:45 to get a good spot. And it's free. There's also the OCBC Skywalk here with exquisite views. The Cloud Forest is an indoor conservatory and a bit like stepping into a misty tropical mountain. I cover everything you need to know about my two favorite things here in Singapore, as well as other ones I'll mention soon in this video, 24 hours in Singapore. Linked here and in the description. There's also the Flower Dome and the Dragonfly Lake here. Other must-do things are Marina Bay Waterfront and Mall. It is a great vibe where you can stroll and stare at the insane stores. People skateboard and rollerblade here. The mall here has some very expensive stores with beautiful designers. Sentosa Island. You will find world-class entertainment and attractions here. Universal Studios Singapore is here, where we spent a whole day trying all the different rides and rating them. You can watch that video, linked here and in the description. You can also find the aquarium, beaches, and the Adventure Cove water park here. Off the island is also the Singapore Flyer, the Merlion, Art Science Museum. They have some great exhibitions here. They change every few months. We had the opportunity to experience one of them and it was amazing. And of course, Little India, Chinatown, and Kampong Glam. There's also the East Coast Park, Botanic Gardens, River Cruise, and many other things to do. Surprisingly, the activities in Singapore isn't that expensive and pretty much the same price that you would pay for these activities in other countries. Religion. Singapore is multi-religious and really pride themselves on respect and religious harmony. The main religions you will find here are Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Taoism, weather and best time to visit. Singapore is located 1.5 degrees from the equator, so it is hot, always, and very humid. The temperature here is usually between 25 and 31 degrees Celsius, but the humidity at 70 to 90%. Singapore also experiences frequent rain, especially during wet season, and it's not uncommon for it to just suddenly start raining on a sunny day. Since it's pretty much always hot and humid here, there's not necessarily a best time to visit, but you can plan around the seasons. Dry season is February to August. It's a little bit cooler and a great time for outdoor activities, but due to summer holidays in many other countries, it can be a bit busier. And wet season is from November to January. The rain can sometimes provide some relief from the heat in this period, and the rain usually clears up after a few hours. Which brings us to holidays and festivals. The Singapore Grand Prix is in September, the Formula One night race, which brings a lot of excitement to the city, but this also means higher accommodation prices and larger crowds. Chinese New Year, which is in January or February, a great time to visit Chinatown with stunning decorations and street performances. The end of Ramadan is a great time to visit Kampong Glam. The dates are dependent on when Ramadan ends, which differs a bit every year. Diwali, which is in October or November, the Hindu Festival of Lights, and a great time to visit Little India when it's filled with colorful lights. Dress code. The dress code here is fairly liberal, but remember to be respectful and try and wear clothing that's not too revealing or offensive. It's hot, so pack lightweight, breathable clothing like cottons and linens, comfortable walking shoes because you'll be walking a lot, sunglasses, hat, and sunscreen. When visiting religious sites like mosques, churches, or temples, remember to cover your shoulders and also try and wear something long that at least covers your knees. When visiting a mosque, you'll also be required to wear a headscarf. Casual clothing is usually fine, but at some fancier malls and restaurants, you might feel more comfortable wearing something smart casual and try and avoid shorts and flip-flops at these places. Bikinis and swimsuits are fine to wear at the beach or at the hotel pools, but wear a sarong or a cover-up when you leave the pool area or walk around. Strict laws. Singapore has some very strict laws and some are a bit unconventional, so be sure to familiarize yourself with the next 10 laws. Singapore has some of the world's strictest anti-drug laws. Possession, trafficking, or consumption of illegal drugs are severely punished, and some also include the death penalty. Smoking is highly regulated here and prohibited in public spaces like beaches, bus stops, and parks. The legal age for smoking here is 21 years. E-cigarettes and vapes are also illegal. Singapore has some of the cleanest streets in the world, and littering here is prohibited and will be fined. That includes dropping a cigarette butt, gum, or spitting. Spitting in public spaces are also illegal. Jaywalking or crossing the road when you're not allowed to is fined. Chewing gum and the sale of gum in Singapore is illegal unless it's for medical purposes. You are allowed to drink in public, but you're not allowed to drink in some public spaces after 10:30 p.m. at night, like parks, beaches, and the streets. LGBTQ+ travelers are welcome in Singapore, but same-sex relationships are actually illegal in Singapore, although it's rarely enforced. Just be aware of local sensitivities around this in public areas. Defamation, insulting religion or the government can lead to heavy fines, lawsuits, and jail time. Eating and drinking on the MRT is prohibited, even drinking water on the MRT. Singapore is very clean, and not flushing a public toilet is also illegal, and you'll be fined. Health and safety. The healthcare system in Singapore is some of the best in the world. But double check before your travels if your medical aid or health insurance will actually cover you in Singapore, as a lot of them actually exclude Singapore because it's so expensive. If it's too expensive for your medical aid or health insurance, you definitely don't want to pay for it. Pharmacies here are everywhere. The most popular ones are Guardian, Unity, and Watson. Singapore is generally free of major infectious diseases, but just make sure that all your vaccinations are up to date before traveling here. But you can get dengue fever in Singapore, especially during wet season, which is when a certain type of mosquito bites you. The tap water here is 100% safe to drink, and the food safety standards here are incredibly high. The famous hawker centers are some of the safest street food places to eat in the world. Singapore is one of the safest countries in the world, and it's very rare for violent crimes to occur here. Petty crime like pickpocketing isn't common, but make sure to take care of your belongings. The public transport is also very safe. Singapore is also not prone to tsunamis or earthquakes, which is great. Currency and budget. Singapore's currency is the Singaporean dollar, which is symbolized by a $, $, or SGD. It is currently lower in value than the euro, dollar, or pound, and for $1, you will get about 1.35 Singaporean dollars. But this obviously varies depending on the exchange rate. We never needed cash in Singapore, except when we took the bus from Singapore to Johor Bahru. But generally, you can pay for everything with your card or by tapping your phone using Apple Pay or Samsung Pay. But if you do need cash, there's ATMs everywhere and they're really safe and reliable. Singapore is a destination which is a bit more on the expensive side. Accommodation will cost you anything from around $70 per night till an unlimited budget of any amount. Basic 3 meals per day with something to drink, including nothing fancy or extraordinary, will cost you around $40 per day, but I'd say it's safer to budget more around the $60 mark, and the end of this budget is unlimited. Eating at hawker centers, you can get a meal for around $5 to $10, and buying food from a grocery store or convenience stores are also cheaper than eating out at restaurants. Transport is quite affordable in Singapore, and a trip on the MRT will cost you between $1 and $3. The taxi, Grab will cost you anywhere between $20 to about $60 depending on the distance. It's about $20 for a cocktail in Singapore, and it's the sixth most expensive country in the world for beer, at around $12 for a can of 330 milliliters of beer. Activities in Singapore is surprisingly affordable, and there's a lot of free things to do here. The Cloud Forest and Flower Dome package entrance is about 59 Singaporean dollars, 14 Singaporean dollars for the OCBC Skywalk, Museum $10, and Universal Studios around 85 Singaporean dollars, and the water park around 40 Singaporean dollars. Ideal trip duration. Because Singapore is such a big hub of an airport in Asia, you will likely find yourself passing through here when traveling in Asia. It is a great place to come back to over and over again and experience it in small portions. 2 to 3 days is enough time to see all the main attractions in Singapore. I'd recommend Day 1, Marina Bay Sands, Melian Park, Gardens by the Bay, the Cloud Forest and the Flower Dome, as well as the Light and Water Show. Day 2, Sentosa Island, and do Universal Studios or a water park or the beach. Day 3, explore the culture in Chinatown, Kampong Glam and Little India. But there's so much to discover in this small country, so you can easily spend 6 or more days here. What to buy and souvenirs. Kaya jam and chili crab sauce, Singapore sling cocktail mix, laksa bowls, chopsticks and Peranakan craft, traditional Chinese teas as well as tea sets, spices and curry mixes, blends, apps. I recommend you download these apps before your trip to Singapore. Grab, which you can use to order a taxi or to deliver food, the Singapore MRT train app, which will show you tariffs, schedules, and where to find your nearest MRT, Google Maps, Olafly for your eSIM, and Klook for booking tickets for activities. And finally, movies. What movies to watch before your trip? Crazy Rich Asians shows the luxury and opulence culture of Singapore, Singapore Dreaming, insightful and realistic look at the complexities of life in Singapore. The Maid, a psychological thriller that explores social inequality and struggles of domestic workers here, and Raffles Hotel and Singapore's colonial past. And that's it. You should have all your bases covered now for your trip to Singapore. If you haven't started planning your trip, I hope this video has inspired you to visit this incredible country. And if you have started planning your trip and you have any questions, leave them below in the comments and I'd love to try and help you. If you feel there's anything that I've missed, recommendations that you have, or things you'd like other travelers to know, put them down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe to help feed Astray and to not miss our new series coming up, Vietnam. Bye!